Well, good evening, everyone. Let's start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Well, thanks everyone for coming. The first item on the agenda is the open forum. Is there anybody that would like to address the board at this time? Is there anybody that would like to address the board at this time? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 4, which is celebrating our successes. We have a few of these tonight, which is a great thing. And I think because there's usually people that want to take pictures and we want everybody to see, I'm going to have whoever's presenting come and sit here so that parents and anyone else wants to take pictures available to do that, okay? So Mr. Grosclose is going to start here with our National Merit Scholar.
This is an exciting moment for all of us. We wish we had more students up here and over the years. Hopefully we will. But we have an outstanding young lady with us tonight, Isabel Earnhardt, and she is our National Merit Scholar. Now, this is a long process, and Isabella's done a lot of work, and you want to give us a little bit of what you had to do to earn this honor, besides good grades?
Well, it's the PSAT, which you take junior year, I think. And then, so you take the test, and then once they get the scores, if you get a higher than, I don't know what the score is, but basically then they look at your grades, and then if they're good enough, they send you a thing that says you can apply, and then you have to write an essay and send in some stuff, and then there's semifinalists, and then there's finalists, and then you're done.
So the process started in September after the test from last year. It starts in September, and then you found out just before May 6th that you were the finalist.
Mm-hmm.
So our last finalist in Albert Lea, I checked on this. One of 3 was Suzanne Maurer, who happens to be a staff member at Albert Lea. So it's been a few years, but hopefully Isabella will start a tradition where it's 1, then 2, then 3, then maybe as many that are in the crowd tonight as we keep moving forward. So congratulations. Where are you headed after Albert Lea?
I'm going to college in Oberlin,
Okay.
Ohio.
And you want to major as?
Tentatively applied mathematics. I'm not really sure.
All right. Well, congratulations.
All right, that is great to see. Thanks, Mark, for helping with that. All right, then Afton Wachholz and the wrestlers and the swimmers. I don't know if they're doing them one at a time or all at once, or? Okay.
It is my privilege to introduce our Albert Lea Tiger Wrestling team, and I would not do it justice to tell you all about the accolades that they had this season, so I'm going to let head coach Larry Goodnature do all the speaking for me.
Oh, okay. Why don't you wrestlers introduce yourselves here to start out with?
And speak up so the microphone picks you up.
I'm Bo Johnsrud, Gavin Ingashevsky,
Tristan Westerlund,
Zach Glazier, Tim Christensen, Garrett Aldrich.
Coach Score.
Okay, I'll make it quick here, but we had a really fun, successful, exciting, and very good season this year. And I think the kids are very proud of themselves. I'm very proud of them, and they're proud because of their accomplishments they've achieved this year. And another thing that I want to touch on quickly here, if I got a couple of minutes here, but is they're proud, I think, of honoring our military this year and It's thanking them for their service, and I'll tell you what we did the whole year on that. But this year, our accomplishments were, we won the Big Nine Championship, and that's our 26th time Elberly Wrestling has won the Big Nine Championship, and that's pretty impressive. And we won the section championship, won AA. We advanced to the state tournament as a team, and up at the team state tournament, we got all the way to the finals and ended up getting beat by Simley in the finals, but it was a great run for us, and we had a great time, and it was really really exciting. We had some individuals that did very well. The neat thing about sport of wrestling is you get to compete as a team, and you also get to compete as individuals if your team doesn't work out. Our team did work out, but we also had some individuals. We'll start with our state champion here. Got his hat on backwards. Garrett Aldrich, he's a two-time state champion for us, and the neat thing about Garrett, he's only a sophomore, so we got him for 2 more years. And Tim Christensen placed 3rd in the state, and Tim just signed to go to the Minnesota Gophers and wrestle for the Gophers, so that's going to be a fun thing for our whole program also. Zach Glazier placed 3rd in the state. I didn't name their weights, but, Big T-Bone here, Tristan Westerland, he placed 3rd in the state also. Both these two, Ingashevsky and Bo Johnsrud, they advanced the state tournament as individuals and had a good tournament up there also. We got 3 of these guys coming back, which is nice. What we did this year for what was just really neat is we started out the year and I ordered some camouflage singlets. And so all year long we wore camouflage singlets, and I told the kids that we were going to dedicate this season, our current season, to the military and to Corey Goodnature, who Corey was a 1988 graduate of Elberly High School and also an Elberly wrestler. And he was killed in action over in Afghanistan 10 years ago. And so I dedicated the season in 2006 to Corey, and that year we went all the way to the state tournament also, to the finals of the state. Come on, Devin. Late. Devin Nelson, another senior and state entrant, individual-wise also. So we dedicated the season to Corey and our military, and we wore the camouflage singlets at every home meet. We had Tim and Tristan run out at the beginning of our meet with the American flag and the POW flag. We invited all the military to come to our matches, and we had 2 nights that we called Freedom Night. And on those nights, the military got in free. They signed their name, what branch of service they're in, and we'd run out with our flag, go around the gym with our 2 flags, and then line up. And then we'd have the color guard from the American Legion come out, and the color guard would present the flags, present colors, and then we'd do our national anthem. And then we'd have all of our military that came to those meets that night, that would come down to the floor, stand next to the mat. And both nights, one night we had 42 military there, the other night was 43. It was awesome. And they really loved it. I mean, then I would have our team go through and shake their hand, the opposing team shake their hand, the coaches, referees. It was really neat. You go through that line, shake their hand, and thank them for their service. And a few of them, the tears are rolling down their face because they want to be thanked for what they've done, protecting our freedom. And I hope I've taught some of these young guys that freedom is not free, and what they're doing, get to do, is because of our military and people that have served our country. So hopefully that helped with our young kids here. And I know I was proud of the whole season. I think they're proud of themselves, and we had a great season. So thank you.
Next, we are going to honor our Albert League girls swim team, and Coach John Schmitz is going to give a recap of their season.
I think we're only missing Bailey Sandin from our state crew here, but I'll have the girls do the same, and introduce yourself, please. Go ahead.
I'm Lindsay Horaci.
I'm Haley Simon.
I'm Emily Taylor.
I'm Anna Anderson. I'm Annika Jensen.
And we had just a real fun season as well. New coaching coaching staff was Joey Clapp. He's also the head boys coach, and he brought in a lot of great ideas. We have Eric Johnson, who's not here too. But anyway, we had coaching staff from multiple generations, so we all thought a little differently and all brought a lot of stuff to this group here. This is the hardest working group I've ever had. You know, we've got Lindsay has been in the Olympic trials since she was 14 years old. Just the whole program kind of took a little different turn, and we had to train a little differently because of that. We got a really bunch of quality kids. We have 2 state champions up here. Actually, we have a lot more than that, but I'll just go through. The medley relay was state champs. They were state record holders, and that was Bailey Sandin, Lindsay Harashi, and Annika Jensen. Also, who anchored it was Anna Anderson. And they were the fastest time in the state ever for Class A, so that was quite an accomplishment. And then we went on to the next event, 200 IM, and Lindsay Harashi set the all-time record. She's the first girl in Minnesota ever to go under the 2-minute mark in the 200 IM. And she's currently rated 10th in the nation. Of course, California's getting their times in, so we hope we'll hang in there. But anyway, she'll be for sure top 16 in that event. Then we went to 50 freestyle and won another state title. And Anna Anderson blew everybody away with her amazing turn. And she went down to Texas this year and trained a little bit. And a lot of these girls train in other places, which just shows some of their dedication. And they learn a lot from a lot of different people. And then we went on, and also Annika Jensen's placed in the consolations for us. She had a little knee trouble, so we couldn't put her in the breaststroke. So we said, would you like to be a sprinter? And anytime you say that to a swimmer, they're like, oh, yes, please. So we made a sprinter out of her, and she was a big point getter for us. And she also did 3 relays for us as well. Moving on to 200 free relay. And who have I not mentioned here, but Haley Simon was a member of that with Lindsay, Anna, and Annika right there. Anyway, we went under the state record, but we couldn't win the event. We ended up second in that event. Moved on to the breaststroke, and Lindsay went under the minute mark. She's currently rated #1 in the nation in that event. There was a girl out in California who just broke the national record, if you saw that. Were you up on that? And she broke the national record that Lindsay held for, how long did you hold that record?
6 hours.
Huh? Yeah, 6 hours. She held the record for 6 hours. Fastest 16-year-old in the nation. Lilia King broke it, and now this girl, Popoff, took it down by another 100th or whatever, but you're still #1 in the nation. Just wanted to tell you that. So that's good. So anyway, Emily Taylor, she filled out our 400 free relay, and all these girls were in multiple relays. I can't remember what, but I'll tell you what, those points were really valuable. We won. It was kind of amazing. We took 3rd place trophy. First time we've ever taken a trophy at state, and it was really fun being up there in the award stand. And it's something that these girls are going to remember for a long time. So they worked super hard. Coaching staff and the swimmers had just a great time, and I think that's what it's all about, you know. Have a great time there and work hard. So, success.
We certainly appreciate students coming. And I think, you know, those 2 groups have been here before, as we all know, and they're just, the kids that we see up here are, first of all, a lot of dedicated, hard work individual, but they're parts of really great programs. So they really set the bar high for the other programs to strive for. So thanks to all of you. And is Ross? Yeah, hi, Ross. Yeah, I think up here is great.
I have with me Greg Olson. He is the head custodian at Southwest Middle School and at Sibley. I can't really list the number of things that he just kind of helps out with kind of unasked. I mean, it's constant when there's things that are going on that I'll connect with him and say, hey, did you happen to see? Yep, got it. Yep, got it. Already been there. So I really appreciate that. And I think that what kind of put me over the top was some of the work that we've been recently doing with Blue Zones. We had a plan that we were following for a square foot garden or a raised bed. I called Greg and said, I know he's good with his hands and construction and stuff. And I said, do you know who I could get a really good deal from? He goes, let me just check on something. He checked. Long story short, the lumber showed up. He said, I could probably knock that out. And I was like, don't worry about that. We got some kids, we're gonna work on it. And one day, sure enough, he's like, hey, come take a look. It was done. So, that is really, I think, a perfect example of Greg and the work that he's done. But it also, I think, a bigger example of the fact we can't do what we do without our custodians. So thanks for your tireless effort.
Thanks, Ross.
Keep me on my toes.
Appreciate it.
You bet, thank you. Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks, everyone. Item 5, approval of today's agenda. Is there a motion to approve? Second? Okay, any discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, consent items. Those were sent earlier. I would need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 7, reports. Dr. Funk.
Okay. This is the newest PowerPoint version out there, so I thought I'd try something a little different tonight. And so anyhow, that's what the graphic looks like. A couple things I want to talk about. I think the board is aware of this, but I want to state this publicly. We have hired Diane Schultz, or the board just has approved Diane Schultz. She's currently an AP and curriculum coordinator in the Glencoe Silver Lake District. She has just been approved to be the new principal of Sibley Elementary. She comes with about 23, 24 years of experience. Linda, you sat on that interview committee. Any comments?
Awesome, top-notch, super knowledgeable. She's going to be a great addition to Sibley School. Sad to see Ross leave, and Mary as well, but she's going to be a great principal at Sibley. Really pleased.
Kathy Niebuhr, who's been doing secondary programs on and off for the past couple of years, is now going to be assuming the role of secondary programs director. That'll be effective July 1st, and we're not going to be backfilling her position. So she'll be moving into the new role. And then we have Mary Jo Dorman. She's currently the district reading specialist. She's going to become the elementary programs coordinator. So we're going to have somebody focused at the secondary and at the elementary level. And depending on what happens with different grants out there, we will hopefully backfill her position with a grant-funded position. A couple things in the legislature. The bills have passed both the Senate and the House of Representatives, I believe, and we are waiting to see what the governor, it sounds like the governor is going to veto it. But as it stands right now, we've seen some positive improvement on the general education formula, but it's frustrating from this angle. A few years ago, the state of Minnesota was facing about $1 billion shortfall over the 2-year biennium. And they actually provided more money to education when they were facing a $1 billion shortfall than they are providing this year with a $2 billion surplus. But having said that, we're looking at 1.5% for next year, 2% on the general ed formula. We had a presentation that I gave back in February on the alternative facilities revenue. That is a go, so that is going to be helpful to the district starting in 2017. Lori will be able to provide more details on that at a future date, but that's going to help us out with maintenance of buildings considerably. Bad news in the third item there, the original bill had the compensatory pilot dollars from both the House and the Senate. Both bills were at $470,000. It went into the conference committee and got reduced to $150,000. So again, the positions that were funded by that, we reduced last month as a board. So that was unfortunate to see that happen. Good news story in bullet 4 there. Tech ed instructors, fire, welding, police, EMS, electricians will now be able to teach high school students without additional licensure. So that's really good when we're looking at some of the programming we're doing with Riverland. And then the flexible learning year programs, what they have done there is pretty much kept them as they are, except they said, we're gonna let you keep them in place through 2020. You're not gonna have to come back every 3 years for Commissioner to approve those things. So that is what I know today as far as a legislative update. Now, all this can change if they go into an extended session or an extra session, and the bill can be redone. So questions on any of this?
Just total dollars, any difference when we go to the one between losing out on the pilot dollars and the extra general ed funding? Overall, pretty close, or?
I would say the general ed funding is going to be more, but the compensatory pilot dollars, again, we've always kind of looked at this as doing extra things. For example, Kathy Niebuhr's position was funded through the compensatory pilot dollars this year, and now that that's gone away, so we will not fund that position again. But what I can have Lori do is a general run for the board for one of our upcoming meetings, so you have a total picture of what our finances look like down the road. Other questions? Yep.
Student school board reports. You two have anything? You can borrow Linda's mic if you have something.
There we go. Nothing much new to report. I think there's, 13 days of school left?
For you.
Yeah, for me, not for you. And I don't know, I think we're just wrapping up with some of our spring sports, and just, I think everyone's kind of getting the itch to graduate, but we're pushing through. I think it's been a pretty successful school year with obviously our activities, and I think overall, I think school went really well this year. Any comments, Gabe?
Is it on? Okay. As a senior, just getting ready for getting our caps and gowns, getting our senior yearbook. For me, I just had a senior recital for choir kids and seeing my mom cry, and getting ready for college, preparing for college. And I guess you can tell for us seniors, like, we're getting antsy. Like, some of us, like, do we really have to do anything? We'll look at our teachers and, like, do we really have to? And even tonight, we have our last concert for choir. Thursday will be orchestra's last concert, I presume, and they will both be at 7 o'clock. If you guys wanted to come, either one of them, support our school. And what else happened?
Big 9 is this Friday for track.
Yeah, Big 9 for track. What time is that? Do you know? We don't know what time that is. Golf is having their Big 9 pretty quick here. We had Big 9 music a few weeks ago. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Other reports, Dave, anything? Jill?
Yes, I attended the
Could you, was it Friday, May 29th? Is that, okay. From noon to 1? Okay. Julie? No? Linda?
Bill, you were at the Big Nine.
What's that?
You were at the Big Nine Choir concert in Mankato. You forgot. Actually, Bill and I and our spouses actually attended the Big Nine Choir concert in Mankato and the dinner for the school board members and staff. And again, incredible choirs, orchestra, band. I mean, it brings a mom to tears, Gabe. You can't help it. And also, that was a fun thing. I always look forward to that event. And then also, I sat in on the principal interviews for Sibley School as a school board representative. Thanks.
All right, I don't have anything additional. Item 8.1, approval of entering into an agreement with Riverland Community College hosting the Area Learning Center for the 15-16 school year. That's an action item, so I'd take a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Discussion? Any discussion? I know we had the presentation, was that 2 weeks ago?
Basically, this would allow us to, green light to negotiate with Riverland. They've given us some, square footage estimates as far as the building, lease of the classrooms. They don't have a contract completed yet, but it gives the board or the administration the green light to go ahead and enter into an agreement with Riverland on this issue.
Okay. Any other discussion? Bill?
Are they all 1 year at a time then, the agreements?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, yep.
The one thing I appreciated about the presentation is the thoroughness. It was extremely complete, well thought out, well researched, and the questions that were posed to them that weren't part of the presentation were answered, I think, very well as well. So I have a high degree of confidence. I know things can change, and there's always those gotchas out there, but in this particular situation, I think that the staff has put an excellent program forward.
Thank you. Anyone else? All in favor, aye? Aye. Anyone opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, item 9.1, gifted and talented update. Gail Brownlow.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah. Gail Brownlow. And I just wanted to update you on what's been happening in the gifted and talented programming. I moved back into the job in January at the end of first semester, so this is what has been happening since then. And I'll test this out here. It did what it's supposed to. So the first part of gifted and talented work is who gets the services. So I'm putting up the Minnesota Department of Education's definition of gifted, and you can read the bullet points yourself, but across the state, GT programs test students to say, do you fit into the program or not? And if you look at all those areas, there's a lot of thought into, does one test or can one test really show who is gifted in all those areas? So in Albert Lea, we're doing something a little differently. We're going away from the test and we're looking at our 4 critical questions that is guiding all of our teaching and instruction here and our assessment. And the enrichment programs are looking at question 4. How will we respond when a student already has learned it? So I've been asking teachers as they pre-assess students before units, if you have students that have already gotten the subject, the learning targets, send them to me for that unit. So I've been meeting with, from grades 3 through 5, a group for reading and a group for math at every school. The groups are fluid. So the next unit, the teacher pre-assesses again, and maybe new kids will come to me. I've had some of the same students since January, but then I've had others that have been moving in and out. And we weren't sure how this would work, but it's working great. I think that we have been able to serve more students than if I had just gone with a test, which is what most districts do. When I go to conferences, people look at me like I'm crazy, but I really think this is working great. So these are the areas that I'm focusing on when I'm working with students, the higher level thinking. and trying to go above and beyond and challenging with the students, again, in reading and in math. Secondary is a new area for this position. In the past, it was only elementary focused. So this is an area that is growing and needs to keep growing for my job as far as me being involved in the secondary world. So one thing I've tried is a Genius Hour with some grade 6 students. Genius Hour is helping students find their passion and excitement for learning. So I've been working with about 30 sixth graders weekly and helped them come up with an inquiry question. What do you want to study? They've been meeting weekly with me to explore and study that, and right now, they're very scared because they're at the share point. So they are presenting to their peers on their team. The kids that have not been coming to me are getting the benefit of hearing their presentations as well. Around the outside of that slide, those are topics the kids have been working on. This is not all the topics, but you can see the diversity in what they chose. The space-time continuum one, I wish I could go see the presentation because I don't know much about it, but it's just fascinating things that they're doing. This next slide is one of the students is passionate about teaching about smoking and anti-smoking, and this is the front page of a website that he created, and so he was working with that, and he's already done his presentation. In grades 11 and 12, through an integration grant, we were able to offer study sessions that I taught and then pay for testing with the CLEP test. The CLEP test is similar to an AP test. It's a test, they have 33 different subject tests. We gave the Spanish test this year. And if students do well enough, at 2,900 colleges and universities, they can get credits for the tests. So last week, I tested 4 students, and I've got a couple more to test still. I have scores for 3 students, and all 3 of those students qualified for college credits. If I looked at what Riverland and Mankato need for CLEP credits or CLEP scores, they all gain 6 to 12 credits at those colleges. These are students that are maybe on the edge of whether or not they will go to college. So this is a great way. We got them some college credits and show them, look what you can do. So we're very excited about that. And as I said, we've got a couple more students that we plan to test in the next couple of weeks. Through this process, Albert Lea High School became an official CLEP test center. So if we wish, we can open up our test center to area schools and students could come and take the test at our school, and we can charge them an administrative fee in order to do that. This is just how I was doing the instruction with the students. I used Schoology for them for the review. I've also been doing some professional development and teacher support at the secondary level. So I went to a mentor-mentee meeting and did some training for the new teachers on differentiation. And then I've been doing some research and preparing resources for teachers for the other topics that are listed up there. And I think this is definitely an area that I can grow in as teachers know that I'm available to them. Hopefully they'll come to me for more help so that I can help increase the rigor of what they're doing for students who've already met the basic levels of assignments. Maybe I can create more rigor for them. We have many enrichment opportunities going on throughout the year. So I just put up a couple of statistics about the different ones. We had 35 participants in our local spelling bee, although there were more to get to that point. And we sent, I believe it was 6 to the regional bee in Rochester. We had over 100 students participating, grades 3 through 6 in our science fair, and anyone who participates in that science fair is eligible to go to the Science Museum at no cost to them, which is great. I was sitting next to someone at the Omni Theater who had never experienced that before, so it was really neat to see that through her eyes. Destination Imagination, we were able to have teams at 5 different schools. We tried for 6, but we had trouble filling that last position with a coach. So we'll try again for all the schools next year. We had grades 4 through 8 participating. 6 different teams, and our teams participated in the improvisation challenge. So they had to choose different topics out of a bucket, and they have 2 minutes to prepare, and then they're on stage really helping them think on their toes and work together. The students do all the work. There is a manager position, but they're just for the logistics. The students need to kind of work everything out themselves. 4 of our teams qualified for the state competition. 2 of them decided to go. They did not move on, which I think Globals is happening this weekend, so we're okay with that because that was a big financial commitment, and DI is funded on donations, so that's okay that we got as far as we did. Math Masters, we compete in grades 5 through 6. They did very well. We got some individual awards and 2 team awards. Sibley had a first place team out of 33 teams participating in the 5th grade level, so that was pretty exciting for them. And Young Authors, Young Artists is a conference that takes place in Rochester this week. It's on Thursday, and we're sending 51 students in grades 3 through 5. So they were able to choose some classes put on by authors, poets, artists, and it's a great day. Here's some of my goals for next year. I need to keep working with the ELA and math curriculum, especially as we're getting new math curriculum to align what I'm doing with what the students are learning at the time. Incorporate more technology. And I have been talking, especially at the middle school, looking for more opportunities for extracurricular enrichment, so maybe some after-school programs we could offer them. And I have a website with resources for parents, teachers, and gifted students, but I need to do a better job of communicating with parents what I have out there for them, especially for the social emotional needs of gifted children. There's a lot of research out there that I can help connect them with. Any questions for me?
What's the total number in the gifted talented program you deal with in all grades?
That's a hard thing to say because of the fluidity that's been coming in. So on a daily basis, I have, it's really hard to say, I'm sorry. I meet with about 10 kids at a time. Grade 3 reading, 10 kids grade 3 math at each school, and then the same for grade 4 and 5. So, but we've been seeing more students based with this fluidity and letting students come and go into the program.
Sounds like a lot of exciting things going on, and I love the idea of having the 2 classes in each of the elementary schools and going with these students who have completed that learning for that unit. It makes sense because I think that's a challenge the gifted and talented have when they, they've learned, and then what do they do while the rest are learning? And to increase the rigor and keep their minds exploring and expanding is a great idea. And the CLEP also was really interesting to me too. What are there any other CLEP testings that you're planning to do in addition to Spanish?
This year we had looked at, I think it was a history, U.S. history one, and we didn't get enough student interest. They didn't follow through evidently, so we did not this year, but it's definitely something we can look at in the future. We need to kind of balance it with what's happening AP-wise, but it is another option for students. The students that I tested are all Spanish speakers, so some of them aren't even in Spanish classes at this moment, but with the knowledge they have, they were able to test out.
That's great. And do we think that we'll be thinking about becoming a CLEP site, administrating site, or is that something to discuss?
I probably need to talk to the administrators at the high school about it, see if they're, because it would be other people coming in and out of the building and timing-wise with our computer labs, so. But I do think it's something we could look at for after-school hours.
So you're doing this by yourself? Are you the only FTE
Yes, yes.
And what's your budget?
Oh my, that's a big question. I have a whole bunch of budgets because I have 21 accounts and, I don't know, Lori can,
Yeah, we do have special funding through the Gen Ed formula for gifted and talented. And then locally, our district provides an additional, we increase that to give additional dollars to support the program.
I think we get $14 per pupil unit for gifted and talented, which $50,000 a year. And then we spend almost 10 million on special ed. So that just shows you the disparity with the funding mechanisms received. So we do pay, or we do collect the 50,000 or 45,000, and then on top of it, based upon guidance from the board a couple of years ago, we provide some more funding, but it's certainly not near enough based upon the need.
And then from a broader perspective, is there something, I think we're all very supportive of what you do, and thanks for doing it, but what else would you like to see the board help you with? Is it more staff, more funding, other programs?
this is a great question. Yeah.
Well, and I knew the budget. I knew that, and again, it's a very small number compared to, I think, the number of students that would benefit from a bigger program, but we do have budget realities that we have to deal with as well. So I just think it's important for the board to have an idea of how it's going, and are there other things that we could influence to make it better?
I think Austin has I visited the programs in Austin and in Rochester, and I think both have programming that we could emulate if we had more FTEs or funding. They have in Austin the Project Lead the Way, the engineering programs go to the middle school level, and it's real active. Those were very exciting to see. They've got the facilities in a brand-new building for it, so I don't know if it's something we're quite ready for, but definitely the STEM areas are something where we need to grow. The science, technology, engineering, and math.
Great. Other questions or comments? All right, thank you very much, Gail. Item 9.2, Chris Chalmers.
Hi, thank you for having me here tonight. I'm Chris Chalmers, Director of Community Education. Just going to share a few highlights of what's going on in community education this year. Start out with adult basic education. We had 228 people enroll in our program, but to become a participant for our adult basic education program, they have to attend at least 12 hours, and that's what we get funded on. So if they're under 12 hours, we don't get any funding. And we had 146 participants when they reached that threshold. And those 146 participants for us earned 17,844 contact hours, so instructional hours in our program. That's over 3,000 more than last year, so real happy with our staff. Penny Yankees, our ABE coordinator, and our staff just do an amazing job. Talk about tight budgets, they're running really tight, but they get volunteers and they just very creative and resourceful how they put together a program. Also included some demographics there, so you get an idea to see the changing face of our community. 5, 8 years ago, our demographics were totally different, and it's ever changing. We predominantly serve people around 25 to 44. Many of them are working, many of them have children. Our participants who have children in our child care are our most consistent learners. They achieve more level gains, and they are in class more often. So by helping our adults, we're also serving on average about 20 to 25 kids, because we have one room available for childcare. But Penny works with Jenny Hansen, our early ed coordinator, and gets them involved into preschool programs, and we're trying to reach these most diverse at-risk students as we can early on, and they've been very successful these last couple of years. I guess, you got the slides, or should I be? And some of the challenges with ABE are just, we're a growing program, people are coming, and just a really tight space. We're doing 146 students plus about 25 youth in 2.5 classrooms, plus a childcare room, morning, afternoons, so forth. So you just made a vote that maybe allows us to spread a little bit and to make it a more user-friendly atmosphere. And we need better computer lab spaces because we're doing more and more with Rosetta Stone and different techniques online, and we can do that. So a big challenge is childcare funding, because if they can have somebody take care of their kid, they can come to class. Our childcare funding is almost entirely by United Way donations. So United Way does a great job for us. They give us about $12,000 to $14,000 a year. That makes a big dent in the number of kids we can handle. And I think this has been changed, but the House bill a day ago or so had a reduction in our ABE funding statewide, about $3.4 million. But I think the latest email I saw just today was that's been restored. So I don't think, right now, I don't think we're anticipating a big cut in ABE with the growth factor, so I think that's good. We're hoping to, a big push statewide with our ABE programs is to have transition programs, get certificates. You know, what are the needs of our students? What are the needs of the community? So we've been talking a little bit with Sarah Kleckel, Jim Querum, Dr. Funk about what are the needs in the school districts. You know, we're short on paras. Could we offer a para training program for these students and get them engaged in our school system too to help us out? And we're continuing to collaborate. We're gonna co-locate out at Riverland. We're gonna be teaching some of their pre-college math classes next year in the afternoons. So working more and more with Riverland and working on that transition. Early education. 0 to 5 years old, we'll start with screening, early childhood screening. I think in the past we've mentioned it sort of as kindergarten screening, but we really want to get away from kindergarten screening because it's not a test to make sure you're ready for kindergarten. We really want children and families to come in when they're about 3.5 years old is the ideal time. The earlier we can get early interventions as needed, the better outcomes we have. So this past year, we screened 206 students with our community ed staff. Head Start, they do a separate screen. They did another 76, so we received a number of screens. Our plan this next year is to screen 100 more for our district staff. Because of early ed funding and scholarships and so forth, it's more important than ever before that these families need this screen to take place. So we think if we do a couple extra weeks, get another 100 students in there, we think we'll be able to get caught up and get more in a routine of 200 to 250 screens a year. In our early ed childhood programs, we have this past year 273 enrolled through District 241, a number of different programs. Pre-K, that year before kindergarten, we have 101 students at Halverson and at Brookside. We also have Discovery Place, a little bit younger. Most of those students will have another year. They'll do the pre-K next year. We also have an inventive program, the Preschool on Wheels program. When Dr. Casilius came down and toured Albert Lee a few years ago, she thought it was one of the most inventive programs in the state. She goes, wow, I've been around early ed a long time. But it's something that our staff created because transportation is a huge barrier, whether it's adult basic education, early childhood education. But we have a licensed teacher that goes out to licensed daycares. I think it's about 17 or 18 daycares that we go out to every week and does a half-hour lesson and sort of models for the daycare providers what good lesson instruction is, gives take-home work and projects. And then we also invite those students to come to Brookside, but because of lack of space and staff, we only had about 40 students we were able to fit into a schedule to bring them to Brookside for 1 day a month to get that preschool experience. So hopefully with a little more space and so forth, and maybe some more early education funding. That sounds like a high priority this year, that we'll be able to increase that next year. We also collaborate with a number of organizations, the county and so forth, an amazing newborn clinic. 29 babies are showing up. Is that once a month or? Every week. Every week in the Care About You Cafe. They set up a little clinic and just do screens, weight checks and so forth to make it inviting for these new families getting going.
We're public health nurses, that's the collaboration.
Yeah, okay. If you wanted a really long presentation, I would have invited Penny and Jenny, but we're supposed to be brief, so I'm trying to keep it brief, because they have tons of great things going on. And we also collaborated with Integration Grant and served a number of families that were identified by our teachers in our school district and doing some Ready for K information. And early education, space. We have a couple classrooms here, but hopefully we're going to expand. We have, it's an exciting time to be in early education. There's so much going on. The research is proving it. The investment, $1 now in early ed versus $17 later on in life. The more we invest and get these kids on track so they're ready to go for kindergarten, ready to be on reading on track by grade 3. Those are our goals. I thought it was interesting when we're looking through putting together some information here that approximately about 15% of our families in our early ed programs pay full tuition. The rest qualify for scholarship assistance and sliding fee scale. So we're really serving people with needs as far as getting early education. The future, we've started some communication with our other early childhood providers in our community. The Children's Center, United Preschool, St. Theodore's, Preschool, Head Start, working together. We all have a common curriculum now. We all want to have the creative curriculum is across the community. We all have a gold assessment. We want to get that more standardized so that we're all working together. When we do trainings, we want to be one unit working together. So we're trying to, I know everyone's sort of territorial about different programs, but I think there's a place for all these programs in our community, but we can work together. And I think that we've started those conversations, and it's kind of a busy time now in the spring to continue them on, but our hope is that we'd have a common application for preschool. So it doesn't matter if you go to United or Children's Center or District 241, you'd get the same application, and then you would be routed to the program that most best fits your needs. We're hoping to expand our learning time. A couple years ago, our preschoolers were averaging about 7.5 hours of instruction a week. Now this past couple years, we've bumped it up to 10 hours a week. And we have goals, and we had an opportunity for a grant earlier this year. We didn't receive, the state of Minnesota didn't receive it, but that got us starting to think about, what would 20 to 30 hours of preschool look like a week for these families, versus daycare. And what the possibilities could happen there. With more space, we're hoping to, at Brookside, we're hoping to add a steam room. And I was really excited because then I could come over in the sauna and take a steam, but no, Jenny said it's for science, technology, engineering, art, and math. So, but that's pretty exciting stuff too. Mary Jo Dorman led a meeting with our area preschool providers, and we're really hoping we can generate more enthusiasm for a P3 initiative. Mankato School District is doing that, really become integrated. These preschools are an important part of what we're trying to do in our school system, so we want to make sure that all our preschools in our community are at the table and benefiting from like Mary Jo's guidance. And we're continuing to do intergenerational programs and a lot of great things in early ed. And here's just a quick snapshot of general enrichment, the other part of community ed. We served over 5,600 people last year. Some of the different categories that we have in our guide. We've added some new staff this year. We are starting a new software program. Our goal is we're going to do a better job with gathering data for our lifelong learning. And so we can generate interest levels and better contact to the community. Couple interesting facts. Our boathouse, it turns 5 years old this fall, and we've already served over 6,000 participants out of that boathouse, engaging them in lifelong learning, experiential. Our day trips have been just growing gangbusters, and now we just experimented with one to Galena for a couple nights and received very positive feedback on that. So people are wanting to travel with us, and Albert Lee is. We are in a collaboration with Austin, Owatonna, and Albert Lee when we do these trips. And Albert Lee has strong participation there, and they want more. We can't give them enough. We're selling out all our trips, and we're continuing to collaborate through the community. If you open up a community ed book when it comes out, you'll notice that the library's in there, Park and Rec's in there, the museum, all these organizations are. Community ed is sort of a hub. We want it to be a hub, and we want to continue to communicate and work with them. So, any questions on community ed?
Any questions or comments? No? Jill?
A comment, just a lot of exciting things again going on with community ed and early childhood, and I know from the Family Services Collaborative that there is the big community involvement in helping our kids and families be as healthy as they can. And there are family ambassadors, and then there's a parent coach that meets here at the Care About You Cafe, and really nice things going on in the community as well as the district. Thank you.
Thanks.
Said you thought the decrease in funding was reversed in the last version?
With the ABE, yes,
okay,
that's
good.
my understanding. So that the Senate had it in there, and then the House was going to reduce it, but my understanding is that's been taken out. So we're looking at no reduced funding for ABE, which is crucial.
Excellent. All right. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Item 9.3, the high school advanced placement program for next calendar year. Mark Grosclose.
Good evening. Special clicker here, I just go like that. One of the things sorry about my color here, I thought about doing Prezi, but I'm not very good at it, and Dr. Funk has some new things, so I didn't know about that, so you have to go with, I have a little color, I guess. One of the things when I was interviewed, and I've worked with Dr. Funk and staff on, and people prior to me coming to Albert Lee, was the issue of rigor at the high school, and what does that look like, and how do we give students an opportunity to increase rigor and show what they know. And so what I have in front of you is the U.S. News and World Report listing of the best schools in America. And a couple weeks ago, Dr. Funk also forwarded me the Washington Post top schools in America. Sadly to say, Albert Lee doesn't get on this list. There's a gold, a silver, and a bronze, and we're on the bronze level. And one of the issues behind that is we don't have a test to measure student achievement, such as AP or IB. And so tonight, my presentation and proposal to you is to look at adding AP testing for all students in our CIS AP courses and AP courses for next year. In the proposal, I'm asking that the school board pay for these testing for all students, and I'll show you some numbers down in the presentation. I'll show you the cost and probably benefit to our students. I'll make sure that this gets sent to you. We won't go through all this, but list the best schools in America. Some of it is slanted because some of the schools are 100 kids, so it's pretty easy to make those numbers work. Minnesota, I'll show you some comparisons with Albert Lee, one that I worked with previously. And then you can look at Albert Lee. We're very similar to a lot of schools, always looking at improving our math and reading. But the one thing that shows up glaringly is our lack of advanced placement or IB testing. So anytime during this, please ask questions too.
What is IB testing?
International Baccalaureate. And so some of the schools in Twin Cities offer AP, advanced placement, or IB. The difference, AP is a test at the end with a scale of 1 to 5. IB is a 1 to 7. More slanted with a European taste to it, of course. And some of the top schools, it's back and forth. There's a few metro schools that offer both, but it's a very rigorous program. Oh, wow. Mhm. Yep. So, if you score a 3 out of 5, 3, 4, or 5, 3 is colleges will look at, and most of the time they'll give students college credit for that. 4s and 5s are guarantees. AP or IB is 5, 6, and 7s that do that. Sorry about the graphic here, it's a little small. What I did here is I tried to compare two high schools, two communities that are very similar. Albert Lee High School and South St. Paul High School. I spent about 15 years at South St. Paul. I've been able to be at Albert Lee for 1 year so far, so I think I got a good taste of both communities. Both communities have the same type of economics, same type of industry, same type of issues in 2015 and 16. One of the things you'll notice is if you eliminate their 7th grade from their high school, they have about the same size. We have the same minority and Hispanic population. We also have the same economically disadvantaged. So very similar high schools. If you look at their MCA tests, reading and math, very similar. Maybe a few points ahead of us, but similar. And so a very comparable high school. The big difference for South St. Paul is they're an IB school district just the last few years, but they've been an IB high school for probably about 25, 30 years. They rank number 2 in the U.S. and World Report because they offer IB testing. And so the measurement. The Washington Post also includes all the AP schools. There, South St. Paul ranks 13th or 14th in Minnesota. So it's a comparable school, and that's what I was looking for, something that was comparable to Albert Lee that we could look at. How are we comparing? I'm not going to try to compare us against an Eastview or Edina or Minnetonka or something like that. So just to give you a little background. The reason for AP testing, one, the process of preparing for the test helps with the rigor. Part of the process in an IB or an AP school is, as teachers are presenting the curriculum, you're also preparing how do you study for this test? How do you get ready for a college test? And that's what students are doing. They're finding out how well they do compared to other students in the nation. So next year, the first test is May 2nd. Last one is May 13th. And so students will compare themselves across the nation on how they do. For example, we're adding AP Psychology, which you approved. We're also adding AP Macroeconomics. We already have CIS AP Biology, CIS AP American Government, and CIS, Jeff? Oh, okay. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. But, so we have these courses we're offering. So by the students being able to take these tests, it'll show how well they're doing. Right now in our CIS AP, I asked staff, why are they CIS AP? And their comment to me was, Riverland allows the AP because AP has more rigor to it, but we don't test for it. And this year we had one student that took the AP test, and that was out of calculus. And I'll show you some graphics in a little bit.
CIS is college in the schools.
Right.
Explain that to us.
So college in the schools is offered throughout the state of Minnesota. Different colleges offer it, University of Minnesota, Southwest, Riverland. And what happens there is students take the similar course that's being offered at the college level, usually intro-level course, and they take it at the high school with teachers that they have to have their masters, and they had to go through their training program. And so they offer it just as if a student was going to Riverland and Albert Lee or Austin. And so students basically take the course. Based on the rubric on the course, they get the credit for the class. There's no testing unless the class requires a test. So you could have a project-oriented class where there's no final test. And for most rigorous colleges, there is a final. It might be a blue book final where you get a book and you write on one question, or you're taking some type of test like you'd see ACT, SAT. So we also want to look at number 2 is we want to see if our courses are preparing our students. So that doesn't only measure the students, it also measures what the curriculum is. Are we providing a rigorous curriculum? So by our scores, we can look, if we're scoring all ones across the board, then that says something about what's happening to the course being taught. Whereas if we're seeing 3s, 4s, and 5s, we know that we're offering rigorous courses through our high school and students are getting their needs met. And number 4, it just provides feedback. And that's one of the things I'm working with Kathy with and others, and Mary Williams talking about, looking at how do we get feedback. You know, and that could be NWA testing, some form fast testing, something so that we can see how we're doing. Here is what we have for this year. Number of students participating in the courses we offer. So we have a total of 182 students taking the courses. One of the things in the Washington Post looking at rigor, they said a school was rigorous if there was one test taken for every senior graduating. So if we're looking at roughly 200 students in Albert Lee, we don't meet the one test criteria yet. We got one test. We got started. You got to start somewhere, you know. And it hasn't been something that's been pushed before or even really offered. We had, in the beginning of the testing season, it looked like there were going to be 3 kids taking 5 tests. And then it's the question of, oh, do I really want to do that? And am I prepared? That's the other thing kids have to feel comfortable with. At my previous school, we had, our first year, we had 35 kids take the AP test. We didn't offer AP courses, but the teachers taught the course as if the kids were taking the test, and both had been AP students and done that before. So it's having that confidence to do that. Yep.
Another thing with our AP, because I'm in AP Bio and in AP Government, which is offered for seniors, they told us that if your college does not need the AP to get your college credit, they would not advise us to take it because it's too much strain, as well as them teaching their own curriculum, as us worrying about the AP finals, because it doesn't fall under our curriculum during that time.
We'll have to talk to the teachers, because my understanding is they use the AP curriculum. That's what Riverland.
They use it, but they don't, they say, if your college takes the Riverland credits, then you really don't need the AP. You don't really need to take it.
Yep.
So unless you really want to, then you can take it.
Now, one of my concerns is all the schools in Minnesota will guarantee take the CIS curriculum as coursework, most of them, especially the public schools. Outside Minnesota, I have a background with kids going throughout the country. They look at and they'll give kids credit, but it usually goes in the elective category and doesn't fall under the area. So a social studies course will not cover a freshman social studies course, where AP will. AP and IB are more like the ability to test out of courses. So we just want to make sure kids that if they leave Minnesota, they, you know, if you go to Madison, Madison takes the calls them electives, but they don't count them towards their graduation in their area of they need. I throw out numbers here. All these numbers, I can get you the data from it. The cost of the AP test, if you or I were just paying for it, is $91. The state of Minnesota gives us a rebate of $40. If a student is non-free and reduced, then that would be a $51 cost. Any free and reduced students are free. So it's a special benefit to our free and reduced students that might not have the money generally to take some of these tests, as they're paying for ACT or SAT. This is a totally free test, which means they could be saving thousands of dollars in college by getting these credits. The cost this year, and I didn't break this down, well, I have the total cost there, and then I have the percentage of free and reduced. So it would have been just under $10,000 for this year if we would have had all the students take it. With free and reduced, rough estimate is $5,500 that we would have paid as a district, or students would have paid. Here's what we're expanding to. We have the top 3 right now. The macro and psychology are being added this year, and then studio art we've had. It's actually growing a little bit, so it's something I think we keep pushing. Here's the cost overall if the board supports this proposal. The total cost would be $13,209 before the rebate, or with the rebate. With the free and reduced, it's about $8,000. You'll notice that'll give us 259 students. So that would qualify us as a rigorous school with the Washington Post criteria for what that would list. So that puts us in the top 30 schools in the state of Minnesota just by making that decision. Now, it would not get us in the U.S. World News Report unless we back those scores up, because it's taking it plus scoring at a 3 or above, so. So what I'm asking the board to look at and approve tonight with the support of Dr. Funk is that we have all students in CIS and AP courses take the test in the spring. And then the board would authorize paying for the AP test, so it would not deny any student the ability to take the AP test. Questions?
The numbers, are some of those the same students, like one student maybe in 3 classes? So how's that counted at the 259?
Well, they're counted as individual students.
As 3 tests?
Right, 3 tests.
Okay.
And that happens in most high schools. For example, your IB schools, they have the highest level is graduating with diploma, and you have to take usually 3 to 4 of the courses out of the 7 to 9 offered. And then there's kids that'll take 1 course. And I always tell students, there's some students in our school that could take all of them. They could do all of them. But some of our students, they have a specific ability in one area, and I think that's important that we support that, and it gives them an opportunity to see what it's going to be like at college. That, there is some course you're going to take that are going to be very rigorous, and what does that look like? I think even though I'm not a big fan of how the state mandated the ACT, I think if you ask most of our juniors, it was a good experience to see what that looked like so that they could prepare down the road, so.
Is there any, kind of to Gabe's question, if I'm a student and I'm going to go to Mankato State and I take an AP test and I get a 1, will Mankato State still accept the CIS credit, even though I got a 1? So there's really no downside to it.
It only benefits students, and I would be very surprised to see any student with less than a 2. If we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, students should be getting 2s, 3s minimum. You should be seeing, first year, most 3s and 4s, once the teachers get used to it. Some of my friends at South St. Paul do the IB, and they've been teaching it for years. They have study sessions with their kids. Their kids are scoring 6s and 7s because they're so used to teaching the curriculum. It's already there. It's just helping kids understand, how do you answer this question? What does it look like? And so it's really preparing kids.
I don't know if you recall, but Jeff gave a presentation, Jeff Halverson, a year ago on rigor and predictors of success based upon the Plan and Explore. And I think with our more recent Plan and Explore numbers of the 8th and the 10th graders, we could certainly bring that forward to you again in the near future.
Is it the cost, or is it just a personal choice the students are making not to take the AP?
I think we run into the concept which Gabe was talking about, where CIS is basically take the course and you get the credit if you do the work. So there's not a lot of incentive to take the AP test. I know I talked extensively with Kevin Gens, who teaches the calculus class, and Kevin was really pushing this year for the kids to be prepared for this. And he admitted that he wasn't exactly where he needed to be. But we do have a student, we'll see how that student did. But it's upping that expectation. And, it gives us a measuring. I can't tell you with CIS if the students are prepared for college after taking the CIS course. They get a college credit, but there's no comparison that I can measure it against. Because CIS in the state of Minnesota is different. If I was having kids take the CIS at the U, some of their courses are very, very rigorous, where others are not. I know from past experience, a lot of kids taking the writing college papers, most of them were crying at the end of the first quarter because it's so rigorous at the U, whereas U.S. history is not the same. Same thing, I'm sure there's differences between Riverland and Southwest and the other schools that offer. So this gives us a national norm to compare our students to, and speaks highly of Albert Lea, of where do you rank with other high schools. I mean, it's not, I'd like to be number 1, of course, no problem there. But I think it's getting into that conversation that we're you know, Mankato West is one of these schools. Century's a school like this. It carries a lot of weight when kids go out and they're going to colleges. Oh, you went to Albert Lee High School, and it's considered one of the best high schools in America type of thing.
Other questions or comments?
I was just gonna comment. Is this on? Yeah, okay. I think this is a great idea. I mean, I don't really want to test any more than I have to, but I know several people who graduated from Albert Lee and they took the college and the schools classes, and then they got to college and they all were electives. And so they worked for semesters and semesters, and then they had to retake all the classes. So I think this is fair because for students like me who want to go to the University of Minnesota and could just get by with the CIS, I think that it's at least a review for students like me and for students who, you know, get scholarships for schools far away or however that works. They're getting the stuff they need to move on, and they're learning the right things, and they're saving money because they don't have to retake the class. So I think this would be a good idea.
Other, Jill?
I believe it is our responsibility to prepare our students for success no matter what track they're on. So the students that are heading toward university, I believe this would be helpful for them. I believe it would increase the rigor in the classroom, and it will increase their expectations, like we were talking about earlier, about the work that they're expected to do to pass at a certain level. We've talked before as a board about students not feeling prepared when they go to college. They'll get a good grade in high school, and then it's shock when they go to college and it's just not the same grade for the same amount of effort. And so I am in support of this proposal.
Thanks, Jill. And I'd just like to echo that. I think it was about 18 months ago, the board said to Dr. Funk, we want to see more rigor in these CIS classes, and here it is. And this is what we asked for.
I also want to caution you on to be careful what you ask for, and that is this. I am absolutely supportive of this recommendation as well. The considerable amount of preparation on the part of our high school teachers and our high school students is going to be daunting. And I think that this is exactly what the high school needs, but the teachers and the students, if they are going to teach this to the AP standards, and when we hear Kevin Gentz, who's one of the finest teachers at the high school, saying, hey, I'm gonna have to step up my game a little bit here, I think you're gonna see the level of concern raised considerably throughout the high school, which is just a caution, but I think it's time.
And right now, do the families or the students pay for the cost of the AP exam?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we're paying,
We paid for this one this year, but
This year.
generally, yeah, it's a student-funded mechanism.
With what you said, Dr. Funk, what can the board do to support that transition then?
well, here's just an interesting conversation I had with an individual and then with Big Nine superintendents last week. One of their concerns with the start date of September 8th for Labor Day this year is, and you just heard Mark, okay, we're going to be taking the AP exams on May 2nd. So they're looking at, okay, how do we jumpstart our AP courses by giving students work ahead of time during the summer months so that they're prepared, so that they have enough days to get the AP courses done. So that's a concern.
I'll just chime in quick. We also agreed, all the Big Nine principals, we went back to our music staff, and we're moving the Big Nine so it doesn't interfere with AP testing. So it'll be the last Friday in April that the Big Nine will meet instead of the first Friday in May, or the music, so that there's no interference with the AP, because next year it'll land right on that Friday, and trying to ask your top-notch music students and top-notch scholars to choose between one or the other. So all the Big Nine schools agreed to it, which we were kind of shocked, but everybody, I think, understands the reality of life.
Okay, other questions or comments? So it's an action item. I entertain a motion to approve the request that you see above there.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 10, any other business?
Just, did Ross sneak out of here?
He did.
Okay, well, you'll see Mary, and I was gonna say, let's say something to Mary and Ross, because they're both here, but I guess we won't, because Mary's gonna be doing a presentation to you in June, so maybe Ross can come watch that or something.
Okay, yes, thank you. All right, then, item 11, closed session, state of Minnesota statute 13D.05 subdivision 2, small parenthesis B, preliminary consideration of allegations against an employee. I would need a motion to enter into a closed session. So moved. I need a second. Second. Any discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, we're in closed session.